Josaphat, bishop and martyr. Um, and To understand him, I'm going to give a little crash course, I guess, in church history. And mostly it deals with the Great Schism, so the separation of East and West in Christianity. So for about 1,000 years, the church was one. To be a Christian meant that you were part of the Catholic Church, the universal church in that method. But as if you know anything about kind of the Roman Empire's history, once Constantine declared that it was not illegal to be Christian with the Edict of Toleration in 313 A.D. Throughout history, then eventually the church becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire. And Constantine also establishes a new Rome, Constantinople, as it's called, which is Istanbul now, Turkey, and really moves the center of power for the Roman Empire there. So throughout history, you're going to get kind of, even though Rome was seen as the the prime see of the church. So the Bishop of Rome was the Pope and was, had jurisdiction over the church. There's this growing tension between East and West. And because of this, too, you start to get different, there's different liturgical practices. The cultures are slightly different between Constantinople and from Rome. So kind of European versus more of that. I guess it would be Eastern, almost kind of Eastern Asian, a little bit of an influence, but that where Turkey is, in that area of the world, there's a slight difference culturally, obviously, than there is from the middle of Italy. So all these different things kind of develop, but they're not really an issue. But things start to, there do tend to be issues going up. So um, the 1054 is the date of the kind of official split, because on that, in 1054, Pope Leo IX of Rome and Patriarch Michael I Kyriolarius of Constantinople excommunicated each other. This mutual act crowned a number of East-West disputes, resulting in an East-West schism in the Church. Western dioceses remaining in union with Rome came to be known as Roman Catholic, while Eastern dioceses remaining loyal to Constantinople claimed the banner of Orthodoxy. Um, and so that's how we know too. We have here in Toledo, we have Greek, we have Orthodox churches and cathedrals, a variety of different kind of nationalities or different liturgical sections. But there's Greek Orthodox and there's Antiochian Orthodox, there's Russian Orthodox, there's a variety of Orthodox churches that have their own liturgical practices and they're kind of their own separate entities. So in 1054, you have this happening. To get to kind of Saint Josaphat, who lived from 1580 to 1623, so we got to get 500 years from now. So you got this split that's by the time that Saint Josaphat is born, it's pretty well established. He was born into a Ruthian, as it's called, Orthodox family. And this is in the area of Ukraine. Just to give you an idea of what area of the world we're dealing with. And so this, so at that time, though, really his area of the world had come under the, I guess you would say, influence of Poland. And so you have they're seeing as the Polish influence starts to come into this, where the Ruthians, as they're called, live. They're starting to see that the Roman Catholic Church is much more vibrant, much better established. Their churches are in better shape. Some Jesuit missionaries start to arrive, and so there's a lot of maybe kind of this evangelization in a way the from the Roman Catholics to the Ruthian Orthodox, to the point where in 1596, these Ukrainian bishops gathered in the city of Brest for a synod where a union with Rome was concluded. It's called the Union of Brest. The Ukrainian church would retain the Byzantine rite, and its full autonomy as a particular church was guaranteed. The Ukrainian Catholic Church became and still remains the largest Eastern church in communion with Rome. However, not all Ukrainians accepted this union, which caused friction between Byzantine Catholics and Orthodox communities. That's right where, so you see, this is 1596. So this is when St. Josaphat is a teenager. And he has an interest in religious life, but he sees this new union with Rome and is interested in that. And so he joins a monastery. In fact, today that order is called the Order of Saint. Let's see, the Basilians of Saint Josaphat, because the Order of Saint Basil is who he had joined. And so he becomes a monk, is ordained as a deacon, ordained as a priest, is a very effective preacher on union with Rome. That's kind of the main, topic that he discusses, or he's very effective in doing that. And also, um, excuse me, he lives a very austere life. He's a very good pastor. And so just kind of his holiness of life, his reform that he brings to the monks, to the monastery, him and a friend of his, that really, is a great example and starts to encourage people to kind of come over to union with Rome. But there's still a lot of this tension that's still there. He eventually becomes an archbishop and is still working on this. One of the things that they found too, the Orthodox clergy, prior to this union with Rome, weren't well formed, weren't really living out a religious vocation very well. There were a lot of kind of scandalous behaviors, and so Saint Josaphat and these monks really start to reform that or renew the life of the clergy. Like I said, he was a very powerful preacher on union with Rome. His example of his life was also very important in kind of spreading this ideal. But eventually, there's this division still, and from the Orthodox side, there's a bishop. While he's away visiting another part of the diocese, comes into a see and claims that he's the actual bishop, the archbishop of that area. So there's this tension. There's kind of this faction that builds up, and at times it becomes violent. And that's how St. Josaphat is a martyr. That they organize kind of this, I guess, in political terms, we might call it a coup to try and take over the area from him and fight against this union with Rome and stay with the Orthodox Church. So it ends up that I think they kidnapped a priest, and then that was kind of the trap to get him to come. And when he came, he released the priest. He didn't, he tried to diffuse the situation as best he could, but pretty much the plan had already been kind of hatched, and eventually he was shot and killed. And so he is honored as a martyr, the first Eastern Rite saint that went through kind of the Western cause of canonization. I talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. So Saint Josaphat is the great kind of the patron saint of unity, as one biography was saying. He was doing ecumenism before ecumenism existed. So his goal was really to bring about kind of this unity in the church. So we still strive for that, within the church. There are all these different rites. We call them, or churches. The Latin rite, the Roman rite is the one that's the largest. That's the one that we're most familiar with. But there's a Ukrainian Catholic Church in Rossford, the Byzantine Church out on Navarre in Oregon, St. Michael's. Those are Catholic churches as much as St. John's or St. Michael's is Catholic, but they have a different liturgical tradition. So I think it depends on the way you count, but there I think are 23 different rites within the church, and then too, there are usually for those 22 Eastern rites, as we call them, there's usually an Orthodox rite that is not in union with Rome that is very similar to that. So this is a day to celebrate Saint Josaphat and church unity, and pray that we, as Jesus prayed the Last Supper, he prayed that all of us would be one, as he and the Father are one. So we still strive to do that and work to move past our differences to bring about that unity. So we'll ask St. Josaphat to pray for us, and we'll continue to look out and pray for one another. And I pray that God will bless you